it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dream. The best right now. Inspirational perspective.
I want to talk about time. And the way I titled the show is 7 Ways You're Wasting Your Precious, oh so precious time. I suppose that when it comes to time, I think of it with a sense of urgency and how I'm using it, where I'm using it, who I spend it with, how I spend it, understanding that all of us have a finite amount of time. And so today what I want to do is I want to discuss a few things about time that I don't think we often think about. Things like why constant interruptions deplete our energy and steal our time. Might seem like what I'm sharing here is obvious, but you definitely want to listen. Because I'm talking about not interruptions from other people, but sometimes how we interrupt ourselves in our own process. How knowing yourself and managing yourself can change your experience of time. Time is a context. It's a box. It's a dimension. And I think a lot of times we don't think it that way. And so my experience of the context has a lot to do with how I've learned or how I've been taught to experience time. I always find it interesting, like how people experience time and even the absolute, like the absoluteness in their statements, or even when I'm working with a client, they're struggling with time. How absolute they'll be in their experience of like, you don't understand, I just don't have time. And I remember at a point, I was that person. I'll take you back real quick story. I'll take you back when I had first started coaching, my very first coach. And I was an executive, Fortune 500 company, C-suite executive. And my major complaint, the thing that I probably brought the most to coaching at that point in my life was like, man, how can I take control of my time? Like, how can I manipulate time? Like, what can I do here? Like, I feel like I never have enough time. And I remember one particular conversation. My coach is listening to me and just said, like, Linal, you have an enough, not enough context overall in terms of how you look at life and how you look at yourself. And we've talked about cognitive distortions in context. But if you're a new listener and you're like, what is a time context? I want you to think of it this way. Context or a cognitive distortion is a mental lens, which means that everything that you look at in your life, you filter through this mental lens. And that lens typically will pose some type of question that you're looking to answer. And by the way, this is all subconscious. You don't even know you're answering these questions. But it will pose some type of question that you're looking to answer. And for me, the question that I often pose, like subconsciously, is there enough? Or have I done enough? So my mental conversation was always around, is there enough time? And so because my story was on the back end, there's an answer, right? Because we ask ourselves a question and then there's an answer that typically we give. And that answer was, no, you don't. And I've said often that we live within the stories that we tell ourselves. And so if my answer is, no, you don't have time, then that is my experience, that I just don't have enough. Now, for somebody, they just got that, like it clicked. And for somebody else, this seems complicated. And that's why we're going to take our time and kind of get through the show. But I remember my coach saying that, and I also remember getting really angry. I got really, really upset. because I took it personally. I'm like, man, you don't get my life. You don't understand my life. You don't understand the amount of responsibility that I have and the many directions that I'm pulled in, meetings over here, conversations over there, people on my team who need my support. And then by the end of the day, there's so few hours left that I don't even have time to, quote unquote, take care of myself. I remember at that point in my life, part of the way I would de-stress at the end of the day is I would come home and I would pour myself 2 fingers of whiskey. Like it seemed like the fastest way to unravel the stress of the day. I used to have to go to a chiropractor weekly where they would take me through certain stretches and things to stretch out my back, to ease the tension in my shoulders with acupuncture, because the experience of time that I had left me feeling stressed, left me feeling, in many ways, unraveled, and it's something I just couldn't figure out. And it's part of one of the reasons I want to have the conversation today, because you might say, well, Linal, did you figure it out? And I would say that as a human being, I still have quote unquote time challenges, but nothing like I experienced back then. And so I guess the way that I would say it is I've had breakthroughs in my experience of time. And I'm hoping that today's conversation will, at a minimum, provide you a breakthrough, or in some ways put you on the cusp of a breakthrough. Because what I'm clear about is how we experience time for many of us is robbing us of the true quality of life. It's robbing us of our potential. It's robbing us of our purpose. It's robbing us of our goals. It's robbing us across the board in many ways of taking full charge of our lives and operating with powerful volition. And one of the first concepts that I want to jump into is a concept called context switching. All right, and the way to think about this is we're talking about your mental framing. When I talk about context, typically I'm talking about your mind, your mental framing. And so you can Google it right now, but there's a concept called context switching. And basically what context switching means is it's a tendency for someone to shift from one unrelated task to another, right? And there's a consequence for that. There's a huge consequence. So I want to start with something that I believe will really shift your experience of time. Most of us are context switching all day long, and we don't even realize it. And so when we get to the end of the day, we're exhausted. There might be 1 or 2 things that we said we would do that we don't have the energy to do, because in many ways you've been taking your computer program. This is how I want you to think about it. And you've been moving from the internet to Excel, from Excel to Word, from Word to PowerPoint, from PowerPoint to Zoom, and you got all these things open, like all these tabs open in your mind. And by the way, you haven't closed any, because I got to come back to that. You know, I have to come back to that. And then, by the way, some of us, we brag about this. Oh, I'm a phenomenal multitasker. I'm great at it. Not even understanding how it is fully depleting you and depleting your ability to navigate time, to take on the task that you intend to take on. And so this whole idea of context switching, in many ways, is destroying your ability and your ability to navigate this time dimension, but ultimately the experience that you have of time. Now, let me give you some figures here in terms to, just to back this up. On average, most of us are interrupted every 10 minutes. Most of us are interrupted every 10 minutes. Now, just think about that. So that means within an hour, you're interrupted 6 times, which means in a workday, if we take the average 8 hours, that you're interrupted 48 times in a workday. Now, for some of us who work for other people and the check is going to come in regardless, you're probably like, well, they shouldn't have knocked on my door, or they shouldn't have pinged me in meetings, in team where we message at. And so that, Linal, I have to stop, and that's on them. And, hey, that's great if that's the attitude you want to take. But for my entrepreneurs, right now, you're quivering. You're like, wait, what? Because, your time in many ways is your money. And you're like, I'm being interrupted 48 times in a day? Like, what does that mean? Now, I may have exaggerated a little bit, and here's the reason why. Because we're interrupted every 10 minutes, but get this, it actually takes 23 minutes to fully cognitively recover from that interruption. Just think about that. So I'm interrupted every 10 minutes, mind you, not just by other people, but for many of us by our own devices. What I mean by our devices is our cell phones. And that cell phone is pinging, bing, Instagram, bing, Facebook, bing, Snapchat. Like it's going off and we're like, I got to see what's going on. I have to see. And I'm doing that on purpose because that's kind of like what we don't realize is we've become dopamine addicts. And so we don't even have a choice. Like it bings and it's boom to the face. I have to see what's going on. What's happening? Who said what? What are they doing? What did they want? What are they saying? And what did they write me? Every time that happens, it takes the human brain 23 minutes to recover and return to the productive flow that you experienced before the interruption. Given that we assume that you were already in a productive flow. This is called context switching, all right? Context switching. I'm going to say this. I'm certain that in my life, I have more responsibilities than the average person listening. All right? And I'm going to say that. I'm certain that I have more responsibilities than the average person. And at the same time, with all these responsibilities, I'm also fairly certain that I achieve within a 24-hour time frame far more than the average person. So why is that? Why is that? And right now, I just want you to sit back and be with me, right? Sit back and be with me. Somebody's probably like, well, Linal, you don't know my life. I'm busier than you. Okay, that's fine. This is not a contest. I'm just saying that then that means that you're likely well above average in terms of the demand you have on you. Because I think I can clearly say that, in comparison to the average person, I have a lot more responsibilities and a lot more things pulling on my quote unquote time. All right. So why is it that then me as a husband, a father, an entrepreneur running multiple businesses, multiple verticals, different things that I have to manage, why is it that I can be considered a high achiever when everyone else has the same amount of time? Because by the way, we all get 24 hours. We all get that's the great time is the great equalizer, right? Like, I don't care who you are. I don't care your skin color, your creed, your ethnicity, your religion. It doesn't matter. Time is the great equalizer. We all, within a day, if we survive that day, got the same amount of time. Many of us, when it comes to doing what we say we're going to do, we make choices based on comfort rather than value. We don't look at, wait a second, this might make me uncomfortable, but in terms of the value that this decision or taking on this responsibility will bring to my life, that value, I'm going to do it anyway. When most of us are experiencing time, we're going through a questioning factor or decision-making factor of how can I make myself within this time frame the most comfortable. So then what happens is we begin to defer responsibilities and priorities. We defer these responsibilities and we defer these priorities because we have a mental filter that on the other side of, cognitively thinking about our responsibilities, cognitively thinking about, in the contrast of that, our goals, our vision, whatever it may be, there's an answer that comes back around and says, you have time. This is why many of us do what we do. But then, on the back end, the experience is, but I don't. But somehow we can fool ourselves, we deceive ourselves into thinking when we're confronted with whether or not we want to be comfortable in this moment or actually take on some responsibility that will bring more value to our lives, we say, I have time to do this. I have time to create more value. And so then what we do is we procrastinate. And in that procrastination, we actually allow the procrastination, not because it's labeled procrastination, but because what we've done is we've deceived ourselves. Now check this out. The average adult, right? That includes me. That includes you. The average adult will tell themselves 200 lies in one day. And just sit with that. All right, just sit with that. The average adult, right? Hey, these aren't, I'm not making this research up. Like, you can go Google it. Everything I'm saying right now, you can go Google context switching. You can go Google time management, which to me is an oxymoron because you can't manage time, but you can manage yourself. We're going to talk more about that. You can go Google how many times does the average adult lie to themselves, and watch it. It'll pop right up. Average adult lies to themselves 200 times a day, and the majority of these lies are about time. Let me give you some examples so you can actually be with this conversation, because somebody right now is like, no, I do not lie to myself 200 times a day, Linal. No, I'm ready to turn the radio off. Yes, you do. Here's how you do it. I'm headed that way right now. And then you turn around and do something else. Here's another way you do it. I'll be over there in a second. I'll be over there in a second, right? The second's gone. The second is gone already. Hey, man, you on your way? Yeah, bro. You sitting on the toilet. Yeah, bro. I'm on my way right now. I'm walking out the house. No, you're not. You got another 10 minutes on the toilet on Instagram. Like, real talk. You're not walking out the house. And by the way, our conscience doesn't even prick us. This is, like, culturally, for most of us, how we look at time, how we experience time, how we do time with one another. Like, this is acceptable. We can be in relationships. My wife and I, right? I can hear my wife on the phone. Like, she's in the room, in the mirror, sitting there, putting on her makeup. One of her sisters might call, where you at, girl? We on our way. And I look at her, and I'm thinking, we're not on our way yet, right? But I don't think my wife is a liar. I don't think that. And her sister, who she's talking to, knows, like, you ain't even left the house, is what girl, get off my phone. Get off my phone, right? And so these are the lies we tell ourselves about time, not understanding that there's a consequence on the other side when it comes to our ability to fully maximize this thing that we call time. Because the same way I can lie to someone else about what I'm about to do and where I'm going, don't you know that if you'll do it to somebody else, that you will become the main perpetrator on yourself? So this is not a matter of like judgment. I'm not casting judgment. All we're doing is just bringing some awareness to this thing we call time. All right, a couple of things a couple of stakes I want to put in the ground. First, the story that you tell yourself that you are too busy is BS. Like, write that down. It's a story. It's a story. It's not true. You are not too busy. You just don't want to. It's BS. I'm beginning to work with Love, and it's coming in February. We're launching this dating gym and this couple sauna. And, when we get to talking to these singles about dating, I already know one of the things we're going to say is if a person tells you that, hey, I've really been wanting to get back to you. I've been thinking about you. I know I haven't called or text, but I've just been so busy. Like, you're being lied to. You're being lied to. Like, because busy is something that we choose based on priorities. Like, I am busy handling my priorities, which means if I'm too busy for you, you are not a priority. It's that simple, right, man? People tell us what we need to know without even telling us. It's just that simple. All right, so the experience many of us have is that we are busy, and that feels real. The experience many of us have is that there's not enough time, and that feels real as well. But I think the other thing that we can land on is most of us don't prioritize well. Let's just call it. Like, most of us don't prioritize well. There are lots of folks who are killing the game, who have the same amount of time as you. Richard Branson. This man is running multiple companies. I follow him on Instagram, and I'm like, and then you'll see him windsurfing. Virgin Records, Virgin Airlines, investing in taking people into space. Like, you windsurfing, bro? Like, you just have time to pass like that? It's a priority. Like, he understands how to set priorities, make himself a priority, and make his business a priority. Another one, Elon Musk. I just read an article on Elon Musk. Elon Musk is running two big companies, right? Tesla and SpaceX. And then along with that, he's also constantly, putting new ideas out into the world. Again, Elon Musk, they say, Elon, in this article, how do you handle this? What do you do? Elon, being aware of context switching, says, I just do one thing a day. Wait, what? Oh, yeah. Like on Mondays, I work on Tesla. That's the only thing I do. On Tuesdays, I work on SpaceX. That's the only thing I do. Now, why do you think he only does one thing a day? Because he understands context switching. Let me ask you another question. Do you think Elon's phone is going off all day long? Ping, ping. I'm just asking a question. Like, do you think this man who has achieved what he's achieved, like some of these basic things that we overlook, do you think he's a dopamine addict? What I mean by a dopamine addict, that he's constantly pulled into his social media all day long? What about Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, right? A man that went from practically nothing to becoming a multi-billionaire. Do you think he built that by telling himself that he couldn't prioritize well and never had enough time? You think he built that by procrastinating and saying, I have this big goal and one day I'm going to work on it? One day I'm going to get to this, man. Like this, hey, and I want you all to hear yourselves, because these are the conversations I listen to. These are the conversations that often I might be sitting at a table. And by the way, as a coach, I don't even comment. I'll put another bite of food in my mouth so it's full when people look at me. I don't even want to say. When somebody is saying, oh, no, 2022, this is my year. I'm about to kill it, man. I'm about to go. I'm about to make it happen. And I see the same habits, the same things they've always done, the same complaints. I'm like, let me put some more salad in my mouth, because I don't have nothing to say. When it comes to people who are maximizing their time, they're all around you. Examples of them. I fear that many of us might waste our time looking into their lives while they're maximizing time building their lives. Right now, do you, when it comes to how you plan and organize time, your experience of time, right? Because you can't organize time. You can only organize your experience of time. Do you use a calendar to plan the month, the week, the day, all the way down to the hours? Do you do this? Do you do this? See, and I'm asking this very basic question. And by the way, let me be clear that I know whenever I'm talking to someone who's experienced some level of trauma, and trauma will distort your experience of time. It will distort your ability to organize and use your executive functioning, right? You'll find yourself, due to unhealed trauma, constantly reacting and using the amygdala part of your brain in your reactions versus practicing coming from the prefrontal cortex and making executive decisions. So the ability to use a calendar and plan requires executive decision making. But then even more so, to follow what you put on the calendar requires clarity and self-discipline. You got to know yourself. On Tuesday, I'm having a conversation with a CEO and her executive team. And part of what we're going to be talking about is navigating unpredictability. Let me give you a quick insight into the conversation. How does one navigate unpredictability? You set a vision. See, because the thing about the vision, no matter what happens, no matter what you encounter in the present moment, when you know where you're going, you know how to reorient yourself. This is the importance of having a North Star. This is the importance of knowing your life's purpose. Because no matter what might come, no matter what the future holds, you understand how to orient yourself properly. You don't waste time concerned or worrying about what happens next. You're acting in the moment, because no matter what unpredictabilities lay out there, you know where you're supposed to go. Whether there's a storm, whether there's great weather in your life, you know where you're supposed to go. This is the power of vision. This is why I'm such a proponent for goal setting. Because what goal setting does is it has you commit to something despite the circumstance and situations. It has you commit to where you're going despite what might show up, despite what the future may hold. You're committed to going somewhere, which means then you are taking, in many ways, control of yourself in your experience of time. All right, so let's go to the first one. Okay, so one of the ways, and I covered this one already, I already gave this one away a bit, but one of the ways that we waste time is we allow unimportant interruptions to disrupt our flow. So let's talk about flow real quick. There's an author, Stephen Kotler. Stephen Kotler is a genius, man. One of the things he talks about is modal productivity. And what he calls a mode of productivity, he said there are 3 different modes of productivity, and most people fall into one of these 3 different places of productivity. And he says, in whatever that mode is, that is your flow. That's your flow, okay? And when you learn how to get into flow, you can accomplish what may seem like really complicated tasks in short periods of time when you understand what your flow is. And so, I've read Stephen Kotler's work. I've taken some of his courses. And in one of his courses, he actually helps you identify what your flow is. My flow, the way that I work, and this is important, right? One of the things I said in terms of why we experience time the way we do is because many of us don't know ourselves. And so how do you experience flow? How can you get into your most productive state of being? For me, how I get into flow is by actually carving out large chunks of time and working on one thing at a time, okay? So one of the reasons I don't coach on Mondays and Fridays is because that gives me those days to do that. I try to put all my meetings or interruptions towards the beginning of the day, and then towards the end of the day, I can get into flow. I only have one flow disruptor, and her name is Pam Harris. That's the only phone call I'm going to answer. And sometimes she will disrupt my flow 3 or 4 times in 1 hour. I love you, baby. I really do. But she will call me and say, okay, I'll talk to you later. Love you. Say, all right, baby. Put the phone down. And then I try to get back, mind you, 23 minutes, right? 23 minutes to get back to that same level. And then she'll call me again and say, oh, I forgot something, baby. Like, okay. All right, honey. All right. Okay. And she's okay then. All right. And then she'll hang up. So now that hour is gone, right? If we look at context switching, that hour is gone. I might even say, baby, that's everything. Yeah, that's everything. Because, I do love my wife, but, I'm trying to flow. And then she might, oh, I'm so sorry. I know I called this. I'm so sorry I called you back. But I was just thinking, right? And so anyway, that's the only person. And love you, Pam. That's the only person who has that level of access to me. That's it. And then I might say, baby, I'm working on something, like for real. Unless it's really important, love you, but I need to get this done. And typically she'll honor that. That's the only person, man. The only person I will let disrupt my flow. And I just want you to sit back and think about that, because one of the ways that we lose a lot of time is we allow way too many interruptions. This is where we have to learn how to train the people around us to honor our time. See, the thing is, if they see you not honoring your time, you can't call them to honor your time. You got to honor it yourself. And so one of the first steps you have to take is you have to make your time constraints known. Like, you have to tell people, this is how I get down and this is how I work. Even my clients, I tell my clients, give me 24 hours to get back to you. Because if I'm in flow on a Monday afternoon, I'm not calling back. I don't even, by the way, the reason I'm not calling back is because I don't even see the text message. I had to tell a business partner the other day, they were trying to get me to do something on Tuesday, and I didn't see that they wanted me to do it until the end of the day when I was done with my work. And I said, hey, look, you can't hit me up day of to do something day of, right? You have to make your constraints known. You have to train people. That's not how Linal Harris works. Okay, if you want me to do something for you on Tuesday, you probably should have let me know a week ago. And by the way, if you're a business partner, it's an emergency, you better tell me today so I can put it into my day Tuesday or schedule it to be done. Because that's how I honor my time. Here's the other thing. Real quick. Hey, y'all got to disable the notifications on your phones. Like, man, the phone has been designed to hook you. It is a dopamine creating factory. If you don't know what that means, dopamine is the chemical, the hormone that goes to the brain that makes you feel fulfilled. And so most of us are addicted to picking up the phone when it buzzes and operates because we want to get a feeling of fulfillment because your work doesn't fulfill you, your relationships don't fulfill you. You don't know your purpose, so you're not fulfilled by the work that you do. And because you're lacking in those areas, you're letting the phone, in many ways, cover the gap. Turn them off. And by the way, the phone is like a drug, man. Like, because that dopamine hit, this is no different than a cocaine hit. And so you're looking, bing, look. It's like, if you truly want to take your life to the next level, if you truly want to create something, you're going to have to master the technology. It's that simple. What are some ways to minimize the interruptions and distractions? So let's talk about that. The first is you have to become aware of the distractions and the interruptions. And so maybe one of the things going into this week that you do is you have a clean piece of paper in your journal and you just start notating, here are the places that I got interrupted all day Monday. Here are the places I got interrupted all day Tuesday. So you can begin, in many ways, putting a fence up to protect yourself from those things. Many of us are being interrupted by the same thing over and over all the time. And so now if you bring awareness to that, then you can begin to control your experience of time. But those are ways to minimize distractions. First, what are the distractions? Identify your distractions, identify your weaknesses, and then hedge yourself against those weaknesses. You don't have to be a superhero, but what you do have to do is admit what the weaknesses are to yourself, first and foremost. And then once you know it's a weakness, there's lots of good stuff out here, man. You can just Google, how do I get over this weakness? And they'll have lots of tips for you. The second way that you are losing precious time is multitasking. Like, now, my wife tells me all the time that you're a poor multitasker. What she doesn't know is that makes me proud. She's like, man, you're a poor multitasker. And I'm like, okay. You notice, baby, I never argue with you about it. Because to me, that's a good sign. That's a good sign that I have a weak multitasking muscle means that I'm not wasting a lot of time. We talked about context switching, right? If you're trying to do two things at once, it's going to take you more time to do those two things at the perceived one time than it would take you to focus on one thing, handle it, and then focus on the second thing and handle it, period. One of the brothers said, what's multitasking? I know, man. Don't worry about it. If you don't know what it is, don't even get involved. But a lot of us, we like to think that we're multitasking. That's why a lot of accidents happen. Somebody's trying to text and drive. That's multitasking, right? They're trying to, look at what's happening on Instagram. I saw a sign not too long ago that says you can check that message when you arrive. Like, because your life is on the line. Think about that, man. Multitasking is taking some people's lives. Like, they're so given to it that, they end up, unfortunately, hurting themselves in car accidents and things like that. So that's number two. All simple stuff, right? Focus on one task at a time. Overcome your insecurities. All right, let's talk about this one. So what do I mean by this? Many of us don't even own our own time. Like, we've become a slave to yes. What do I mean by that? Well, one, like the whole concept that you don't answer your phone, like that gives you anxiety in itself. Like, what do you mean? What would people think about me if I don't answer their phone calls? Insecurity, right? Because then when they call you, they go, hey, can you? And then because of your insecurities, you don't know how to say no. So your day, you can start your day thinking, you know what? Linal's right. He said I need to sit down and write my goals, and he is right. That's Monday. I'm about to, where's my calendar? You go on your Google Calendar and you block out the whole, somebody's doing this right now. Block out the whole day for goal. Say, I'm going to write my goals. You're excited right now. But you also have some little insecurities. And so 10 o'clock comes, you might be an hour in, you're feeling good, and the phone rings. Oh, well, I don't want to not answer that. They may need something. And so you're going to pick the phone up, and they're going to say, hey, are you doing anything today? And insecurity is going to have you say, this is when, like, you don't know how to say no to them, but you'll lie. Remember I said adults lie 200 times? You'll lie to them and say, no, I'm not. What's going on? Right? Because you have a fear of missing out. You got a fear of missing out. You don't want to miss out on something. What you don't know is you weren't about to miss out on nothing but heartache, because now they want you to pick them up and take them to the store. And then after you take them to the store, oh, I didn't tell you. Can you drop me by the bank too? And by the time they finish using you for their day, everything that you committed to doing goes undone, because you haven't overcome your insecurities. You don't know how to say no. You don't know how to make people wait. You have a fear of missing out. And all those insecurities combine themselves to the point where you give your precious time to other people, helping them build or do what it is they intend to do, and you never get around to yourself. Talk about a lack of self-love. And it breaks my heart, because you're supposed to make an impact. And the only way you can make that impact is if you get intentional about serving yourself first, pouring into yourself first, so that way you can pour into other people. Now, here's the other piece to this. Many of us waste time making excuses. Well, I did say I was going to work on my goals today, but now that I'm sitting down at the table, I can see the counter needs to be cleaned off, and I just can't concentrate with that counter looking the way it looks. And the children left crumbs all over the table this morning. I need to go to the kitchen and get a dish rag and clean this table off. And because you give yourself lots of excuses not to honor your time the way you said you would honor your time, you look up, the entire kitchen's clean. The whole counter's cleaned off. The kitchen table where you were working is immaculate. But that page that you were supposed to be writing on, it's empty. And then you find yourself frustrated that evening. You know why? Because when the family comes in, the counter's dirty all over again. And when they have dinner, there are more crumbs than what you cleaned off the table on the table now. And there you goes. Page is still empty. Because you wouldn't honor your own time. because the excuse you created seemed good. It's solid. You know, I just needed to clean this up. But that's the pattern. Excuse after excuse after excuse. The number one hack to prioritizing is actually having goals. All right, so then what do we start with? I have a vision for 2022. Very clear on what I want to create in my health and well-being. I'm very clear about what I want to create in my relationship with my wife, with my son, with my family. I'm very clear about those things, okay? I also know within my business, there are 7 distinct things that I'm looking to accomplish in 2022. I'm very clear on this, okay? In terms of my money and how we're handling our money, they're very clear, distinct priorities that need to be handled in 2022. For one of the things is my wife and I, we want to double down on Legends life insurance. We want to create more investments around him going to college and him having options. So these are 2022 priorities. So I'm very clear. These are things that I'm looking to achieve. Matter of fact, I plan to achieve that before we even get out the month, right? Because I gave myself a time frame and a deadline. We'll just jump to number 7. Number 7 is learning how to delegate and hire support.
Yeah.
Now, in the Facebook stream, when I said that, somebody was like, hire somebody? And they laughing because I think some of us don't think enough of ourselves to believe that we should be delegating or hiring other people to do things that we shouldn't be doing. Let me give you an example. It's snowing outside. I don't want to, my time is too valuable to shovel that snow today.
Correct.
I'm going to hire someone. The neighbor across the street, his nephew, when I get off the air, I will be texting, like, yo, bro, what it look like today? I'm not, why would I, and he's probably going to charge me $25 to $30. Let's think about that, right? I can make well above that in an hour at any given point. And when I say well above that. So why am I spending an hour shoveling the snow? But see, this is the thing. We don't think of it that way. Oh, it just needs to get done. Let me go do it. And by the way, you pointed to this earlier. I'm also comfortable shoveling the snow, right?
And when you do that, now you can say that I've been busy.
Yeah,
so now
I did something.
Now you have an excuse to say, well, that's why I didn't finish my tax, or that's why I didn't write that book, or that's why I didn't lose that weight.
And by the way, I'm exhausted now, so I get to reward myself with Netflix.
For sure. And you can go through life that way if you choose.
Yeah, no doubt.
You cannot go through life that way and expect to be excellent. You can't.
You'll never get
cannot go through life that way and expect to be vibrant and to break your own glass ceilings in life. That it won't work.
Not at all. And I love how you talked about leverage, because then what just happened in one day with that leverage of hiring other people, I counted almost 10 tasks were handled.
Yeah.
And then get this, you all. Get this. And Attorney Fenton still has energy left for the evening.
Correct.
10 things got done. And he has energy and mental space. Go ahead, Fenton.
You let me be very clear. Let me clarify. I said from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
3 p.m.
I didn't say 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Linal, I'm done come 3 p.m.
I'm envious.
Listen,
I'm envious of that. You've been at it a little longer. I'm gonna be on your heels, man. That time is coming.
I don't even want to tell people that I say it, but I don't think people hear me.
I already know, because that's, if my phone rings and it's you, typically you're calling me about 4, and notice and then I have to push you to voicemail. I don't know what he wants, but I can't talk to him right now. I'm still finishing my day.
Yeah. So come 3 p.m., I'm already satisfied. I've already had a productive day. I've already been to the gym. I've already had me time. I've already listened to a Gary Vee podcast. I've already accomplished 10, 12 things. And it's 3 o'clock. And I'm walking out my office at 3 or 3:30. And then at that point, Linal, I shift. I context shift to, now, sir, what would you like to do?
There you go.
Do you want to work on marketing? Do you want to do a video for social media? Do you want to do that's why I post at night now. I do my post at maybe 6 p.m. Every now and again, I'll do one in the morning. I'll do a post on Facebook, and I'll play on Facebook. Now I'm still working. I'm still doing things, but now I get to choose, and I'm in a space of satisfaction. I'm already done.
Love it. This is where we got to get. Like, if you want to get to the next level, then you have to place value on time over and beyond everything, because you only get so much of it. Money comes, money goes, right? And so I want to give you a formula. Right now, there's somebody out there making $30 an hour, $40 an hour, $50 an hour, whatever it is that you make an hour. How I want you to begin thinking about when you should hire somebody is when it's less than you make in an hour, right? So if you make $50 an hour, then $25 for somebody to shovel the snow, that's a no-brainer. You deserve that. You deserve, and this is how we got to start thinking about things. Stop completing tasks below your income bracket in hourly worth. Give it to someone else. Even now, my wife and I, we've been talking. I'm like, man, babe, like, the time is running out. Like, we need a housekeeper. I don't want to clean the kitchen after she gets done cooking. That's the current setup, right? She might cook, and then I'll clean. Like, I don't want to clean the kitchen, and I'm not sure you should even be cooking. Like, that's where I'm at now. And I love my wife's cooking, but I'm just not, where we are now in our lives and what we're producing and creating. I don't even know if you should be cooking, and I definitely don't want to clean. Like, I'm worth too much. Sorry. Let's bring somebody else in. They can come in, they can do all that, and they can leave. We could be with our family, we can be together, and they can leave the house at 9. All right, good night, have a good night. They get paid every Friday, whatever. Like, let's make that happen. But it's how we think, how I think about the value of my time and my ability to connect with my son, my ability to connect with my wife, etc. Number 4, email. Real quick, a lot of us lose a lot of time in email telling ourselves that we're working. You should create email reading times. I read my email twice a day. If you email me between those times, you do not get a reply, period. All right? And then when I read my email, I reply immediately. Again, some of us, man, we get so caught up in discomfort, I don't know what to say. You sit on it, then you forget to respond. Nope, I read and I reply so I can stay in flow. And then when I send email, I want to honor your time by creating very specific subject lines. So when I send you an email, I'm going to tell you exactly what that email is about. Guess what? Most of my emails get answered. Right? I'm very, very specific. I want to honor your time, and then I'm honoring my time. Okay? That's number 4. Number 5, meetings. You cannot get me into a meeting unless there's an agenda. I'm always going to ask you, what's this about? What's this about? And then, if it ain't about nothing, I'm going to say, yeah, no, I don't need to be there. Hey, and then after, like, let's say you do get me in a meeting. If the meeting doesn't go well, I'm debriefing myself after the meeting, and then I'll be like, interesting. Ade wanted to meet, but he didn't talk about anything. Okay, noted. The next time Ade wants to meet, I'm going to say, hey, brother, look, man, last time you wasted my time, right? And Ade doesn't waste my time. But the last time you wasted my time. And so you need to come with it this meeting, or it's going to be very difficult for you to get future meetings with me, period. Number 5. And get this. I do not schedule back-to-back meetings. I always give myself a 10-minute break for a mental reset. I do not schedule. Some of you all think that you're saving time by scheduling back-to-back meetings, and you're not even mentally in the next meeting because you're still processing from the last meeting. And then by the time you catch up in this meeting, you've missed things, and so now you're trying to catch up. And then you miss it, and so now you got to go back and ask questions, and you're losing way more time. I don't do back-to-back. Even with my clients, I always give myself space between each client. Minimum 15 minutes. Minimum. Most of the time, 30 minutes to an hour. Okay? Here's the biggest way most of us are losing our time to close out. Number 6, procrastinating. Procrastinating. If you want to begin maximizing your experience of time, you've got to learn how to eat the frog first. What do I mean by eating the frog? You take on the task that is most challenging first. Why? Because at the beginning of your day is when you're at your best. And if you truly want to maximize your experience of time, then you go after the most difficult, the most challenging task first. Because once you complete that, not only do you experience relief, but you begin to realize that the rest of the priorities that you've built out, you fly through. Boom. Boom, boom. Here's the last thing I do. I like to challenge myself. Linal, can you finish all your work by 1? And if you do, you get to watch 30 minutes of television. I'll do something like that, 30 minutes of ESPN. And I'll still go back to work to finish up more because I value my time. But at the end, I'm always pushing myself to see how quickly I can perform a task and get through with it.